Hey everybody, Brandon Jones here to talk about more E3 impressions, our final round of E3 impressions. We got Ben Moore, Brad Ellis, and Daniel Bloodworth. We had some technical difficulties while we were streaming, so we're going to be doing this offline. So you might be seeing this live, you might be seeing the recording. If you're seeing the recording, it all happened previously to you. So we're just, as you said earlier today, but it's the home stretch. We are so close. I have four more games technically. There's Desperados 3. Should I wait for Huber for that? Or should we Desperados 3 now?
I don't know why we need to. I don't know.
Wait for Huber? Okay.
I don't know
why you need to wait for Huber.
Got it. Okay. Then I will talk about 4 games right now. But I'm going to start off, I just tease Desperados. Maybe we'll wrap up with that. I want to start with a game that actually has a fair amount of relevance in the Easy Allies community. A game we will not be reviewing ever or putting a review score on because they gave us a good amount of money to help us support Easy Allies as a podcast sponsor. That was Iron Harvest, which is a genre. I feel so bad because I'm just awful at RTSs. But one of the things that it might seem like an odd compliment, but something that I really enjoyed about Iron Harvest, it is just so wonderfully straightforward. Like, I did very poorly in the demo because there was just a lot of like, I wonder if I take this guy. Oh, he kills him right away. Okay. Well, maybe I'll try this guy. Oh, that worked out better. And so by the end of this demo, I was like, I'm excited to play that again. I would like to try that one more time. My appointment is over, but I would love to take another swing at that. And then they mentioned at the end, he said, we're going to be handing out codes for the demo you just played, and you'll be able to download that on Steam and check it out. And I would love to stream that or at least just to play that one more time because it was a very straightforward setup. My base was on the top left. The enemy base was on the lower right. There were refineries and resource nodes that I could capture. Again, for those who are completely unfamiliar with this, the concept, I believe it's called Iron Harvest 1920 Plus. There's a plus after the 1920. And this is during wartime, but it is kind of a mixture of genres. So it is that classic, kind of World War I, World War II blend, but with mechs, with a lot of just kind of what if scenario of like, what if we had access to all this crazy technology? And so all of these things are just kind of these big lumbering rust buckets that have just this very like when the refinery will actually build a ship, you can see these kind of big pieces of metal like clanking together, and so it's neat. It kind of feels like a lot of different things, kind of like Medal of Honor meets War of the Worlds. Like it's really interesting not only to see this aesthetic brought to life, which is actually created by a European graphic artist who I do not recognize, but if you see actually when they used to be our sponsor, we would show images, a lot of this concept art, and it was neat that they were inspired by this and then reached out to this artist, and this artist was like, 1, I'm down. 2, I love RTSs. 3, video games. Let's do this. And so like it was neat, like getting all of that together. They were like, we used your art to just be inspired by this, and we were planning on designing our own stuff. But he was like, no, please bring all of my art to life. And so it was neat because that concept art seemed a little good to be true. Like, wow, your concept artist is going nuts on this. So it definitely did feel like a lot of the art that I had seen come to life. But I think one of the key mistakes that I made is they had a previous demo, and one of the things that they said that they had changed from that demo was a cover system. And so you can select multiple troops and then decide. So if I'm picking like 3 big mechs and moving them to one part of the map, it'll actually have 3 dots where it'll say like, here's where these are kind of going to be in relation to how big they are and where you want to put them. But if I grab a set of troops and then pick like the side of a building or like a wall or a trench or something like that, it'll actually show like the 6 dots, and those will kind of move naturally as I move the mouse along there. And so my classic rookie real-time strategy mistake, which is like, I'm going to take one of these and a couple troops and engineer to heal them, and then let's all go, everybody. And then we all head over, and I lose a couple troops, and then they're like, your base is being attacked. And I'm like, what? Oh, right. Okay. And then I go to the engineer, and they're like, we don't have supplies. And I'm like, make something quick. Like they've already taken out one building and moving on. But I didn't get upset. I didn't get angry because it seemed... So my big thing is like I think I needed to very slowly move across this map and really like take a position, fortify it, and then move on, because there was really gratifying from my experience with, I think the RTS I played more than anything was the StarCraft trilogy of StarCraft 2. And I loved playing as the Terrans because I loved how you can modify troops, how I could have something that was on the ground and also in the air. And so it's neat to like At one point, I had the troops find, I do not know the technical term for it, but just like a placement gun. So like a big heavy-duty gun that you have to like pick the front part up and wheel across the battlefield. And I just found this on the battlefield. It was, left by the enemy. And so I had to have a troop go over there, get it, and then they all kind of slowly wheel it in. So I have to pick a position, knowing that if the enemies just decide to cruise on over there, these guys have no defense. They can't do anything. But if they're far enough away, they can just kind of slowly lob stuff at the enemy. And so it was fun kind of pissing the enemy off with these long range shots, having them rush me and then kind of, pincer attack, like trapping them. And, or just like, the difference between this kind of slow gunner that has like really fast machine guns that can just lay waste to troops but does almost nothing to the other mechs versus this big thing that's super expensive, takes a ton of time to build, moves very slowly across the battlefield, but just has this humongous cannon on the top of it that if you actually make a point to like hunker down, it'll like just, devastate stuff in like 1 or 2 shots. So it was a short demo. I feel bad because the guy to the left of me was just like the RTS Pro. So like when I asked my first question, he was like, done. And the guy's like, oh, he's like, we actually have another mission that's a lot harder if you want to try it. And that guy was like, kicking ass in that part of the demo when I left. But it was neat because even, doing very bad job at this demo and this not being my genre of choice, I still definitely was like, I bet even just for me on a second round, I could do a lot better. And if this was early in this campaign, I bet I could learn a lot of lessons that I would take into other levels. But it's just so interesting. If this does not ring a bell for you, I at least check out the art because it really does stand out in terms of the genre and just the theme of that time period is a fascinating approach.
So you mentioned you picked up this weapon from the enemy and used it against them. Can they do that to you? Is there anything that's really powerful that you have that you could lose and then?
I think it's kind of like the. Yeah, it's another good question too about the refineries. I didn't ask that. I don't know if you just kind of hunker down and just defend, if they'll start to like take these things away from you.
Yeah.
You could also do damage to them. So it's like I bet they can because it would make sense if I could do damage to it. It's like, well, I've lost that. Better no one has it than they have it.
Are these mechs, are you like customizing them and giving them like different weapons? Do you have abilities for these mechs that you're popping off, like cooldowns during the fight, anything like that?
No, just kind of basic commands. Again, It was just very straightforward. Like that might be something that they introduced later, or very possibly a button that I missed. But again, it just seemed like to me it was about that kind of rock paper scissors mentality of just kind of knowing like
having the right
I need to mix up and of course I'm just such a rookie at this stuff that I'm just like all 5 of you go there, as opposed to like no you singularly go here, then you go there, and then getting used to tactics and stuff like that. Of course there's Fog of War. It wasn't that a huge map, but it was neat. It kind of, as someone who played StarCraft, it was kind of fun getting that sci-fi vibe. But then, of course, thinking much more of like, I'm trying to think what are good like World War II, World War I RTSs. Do any of those
Company of
particularly stand out?
Heroes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Like to kind of see the marriage of both of those things, not in terms of just a style, but obviously there's some stuff in here that has way more firepower than something that you would expect. And it just and it was neat because it almost. These things were powerful, but they also kind of had a like Tin Man from Wizard of Oz kind of vibe, where it's like you'd see these things just kind of lumbering across the battlefield.
Nice.
And I very much enjoyed it. I'm very much looking forward to playing this demo, which I think is, for someone who's not that into this genre, I think the best compliment that I can give it.
Sweet.
Cool.
I headed all the way up to Hotel Figueroa, across multiple streets, to meet with Eli Media, who produced Never Alone, which was a very... I didn't play it, but it seemed to me to be a very a slow storytelling method of up like way up north, like into the a very snowy environment, like very small amount of characters, like not a lot of resources, just kind of discovering natural environments.
Well, it was
Seemed like a very peaceful experience.
Yeah, it was sort of like a side scroller, but it was also like it had a very like purposeful mission about like telling about this very specific culture in the Alaska area.
So I want to talk about both of these games because one I felt seemed very make a lot of sense of like, yes, the people who made Never Alone also made this. And then another one that very much did not feel like that. But the one that did feel was Beyond Blue, which was a collaboration between them and the BBC, because BBC is producing Blue Planet 2.
Okay.
And the BBC was into Never Alone, reached out to them and said, would you like to collaborate on this? And so this is a very similar to Endless Ocean. This is just basically you. It's kind of like Endless Ocean meets like I never played Endless Ocean, so I don't know how to controlled. But I remember like the first moment I picked up Abzu, I was like, oh, this feels so great. You just instantly feel like you're moving around in 3D space. You can control your speed, and so it reminds me of Endless Ocean in that like your point is to go out and examine these creatures, but it just has that just really great fluid movement of Abzu. And it is 15 years in the future, so the tech that you are using to explore the oceans is a little more advanced. They talk to a lot of scientists in terms of like, where do you think this tech is going to be in 10, 15 years? And one of the things actually that I really enjoyed about this is not only is it really fun to explore these aquatic environments. It's a little bit of a difficult appointment for me because dark water and me does not mix. So there are a couple of points where you would like get to the reef and just see that bottom off, like and these giant whales are like coming up out of the ocean. But I also kind of got a vibe of the slice of life of these people working on this. You were this woman diving and doing this research. You had a guy back up on the boat. And so when I would tag something, it wasn't like, well, that's that type of shark. Moving on, it's like, no, that's that specific shark. Like, we're going to come back and check on that shark later and see how it's doing. And so I definitely got the vibe that, like, this was Thursday. This is like a day in the life of these people doing this job.
Did you check back in with that shark?
Not in this demo, but I want to know.
Dang it.
Is he okay? I want to know. So the actual ins and outs of what I was doing was pretty simple. You could classic research each animal, so there would actually be like a dot that would represent like the middle of the mass of that animal, and then as long as you kept your circle within there, you could hold down a different button and fill in the circle, and then boop, and then it would log that animal. And it was neat to see animal relationships. So like one whale came by, and then a bunch of little or I don't even know, it might have just been like a giant fish, and a bunch of little tiny babies were right underneath it. And so it went over me, and I was like, and I could actually like tag every single one of those individually. There was one point where you saw a baby whale nursing on a larger whale. And one point where they demonstrated something that we found, which is that dolphins will play like with objects. So like one dolphin I picked up something and gave it to a dolphin, and then that kind of tossed it in the air, and another dolphin came by and grabbed it. And she was like, "Did you see that?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's actually known that dolphins do that." So a little bit of sci-fi, a little bit of education, a little bit of narrative. It kind of seems to be trying to do a lot of things, and beautiful, like really, really, really pretty, great lighting,
Nice.
great, difference between these different environments. Like they really want you to see these animals up close. One time I examined a shark, and you could see like scarring on the side of it. And that had a story. They were kind of trying to speculate what had injured this or what it had gotten in a fight with. And you would find these things that they put to gather sounds from the ocean. And so you would go and investigate it, and then you would kind of move into this little object, and then you can move 360 degrees, and you had to kind of hunt in the environment for a particular sound. And they said the sounds were authentic, but the technology doesn't exist to make it sound this good. They're like, if you were actually a biologist, you could be like, I know what that is. But like the average gamer is going to be like, what? I hear clicking. What is that? So they like amplified the sound a little bit to make it more apparent and make you discern the differences between these two sounds. And then you would like tag those things. Those would put 3 or 4 little objectives on your map, and then you would go to those and again do research on it, find it, pick up an object, or see the absence of something. We heard it, but it's gone. What happened? And so there's an interesting back and forth. The dialogue was temp, but I could see really kind of getting involved in these characters, especially if you're like if I said Endless Ocean and like you got excited, this is definitely something you're going to want to check out.
Man, I want to learn about aquatic life through a video game.
Yeah,
that's
sounds
cool.
great.
It was really neat, had a really great pace to it, controlled really well. Left trigger descends, right trigger ascends, left thumbstick swims faster, and I just picked that up immediately. And really had it was, again, just like a nice long walk out in the sunshine, and then I get to the hotel and sit down and just like swimming through the ocean, especially because just like so many of our appointments are just like shotgun. It was just nice. These things really do stand out, when you get to play, a different experience like this. And the other game that I played was called The Endless Mission, I believe. And
Endless Ocean, Endless Mission.
Well, the other one's Beyond Blue.
Endless
Right,
Ocean's
no,
the game
just the
before.
Yeah.
Just a lot of endless.
That's paying attention.
I am.
And this game, this was interesting. So you told me about this. I'd never heard about this before. And you signed me up for this because are selling this game, the Endless Mission, like that you can create your own games within this game. And so of course, like, so you can get Jones on that
Jones
immediately.
joint.
And it's interesting because I'm like, the big thing for me with these games, especially like why I'm laser focused on Dreams right now, is like, what can they do to improve this experience to actually attract people to come in and maybe not build an entire level, but just dabble in it. Because like once you just start experimenting with tools in these games, it does get kind of, addicting. And they were like, here's this mission that you're playing. You're going to play one of these games first. And it kind of had like a Minecraft vibe, very blocky. I was in like a fantasy realm and I was gaining abilities, but the way they described those abilities was almost like the player who's controlling your character is hacking this game and actually manipulating these things. So I was like changing the AI of people, making them fight each other, making objects bigger or smaller. And so just kind of like tooling around with like the quote unquote code of the game. And it's almost kind of like a Seedlings situation where like the people in the game know they're in a game. They kind of understand the way this whole thing is structured, but there are still issues that they face and like a campaign that you have to play through. But it definitely did have they showed me screenshots of and gameplay videos of other types of games that you make, like a platform that very much looks like Ratchet and Clank, but like the actual thing that I played had a very big Minecraft vibe. And then they're like, and then you can make your own games. And they bring up that HUD, and it was basically Unity. Like they're like, it's really simple. You just drop down menu and then select this thing, and then resize this, and then do that. I was like, whoa, I don't know. Like,
slow down.
You are talking to the right guy, and this seems extremely intimidating. But at the same time, just like Dreams, I told them very honestly, I was like, I don't know if I'll dabble in this, but what I think is a smart and not to tell them how to make their game, but I was like, I really appreciate and I'm excited about games that have a strong community. So even if I'm not that invested in the tools, if I step away from this game and come back 6 months later and look at all the stuff that they've made, I was like, would you be okay with that kind of community? And they're like, yeah, that's all we can ask for is people that are interested in trying it out and a dedicated community that gets invested in it enough, to create something. And they showed one guy made a very simple platformer level. And, hats off to them for this very ambitious project. But they were like, see, he just put a platforming level together. And it's like, that looked insane what that guy just did. Again, just lots of drop-down menus, lots of different stuff going on within the HUD. But it was just kind of a very ambitious concept in that they were like our booth at one of the indie conventions we went to literally just said the word like meta in the back. They were like, because it's games within games, with worlds of games making games, and they're making their own games, and then the kind of like Tron of just this like hierarchy between the people who make the games and the people that are within those worlds.
Intensely intimidating.
But it's difficult too because there was the speech that they made about the game and then the game itself. So the game that I played was very much just like hack and slash, first person, kind of Skyrim meets Minecraft kind of vibe. But then they would talk about the ideals of what they wanted this world to represent. And I'm like, interesting. I don't know. It is fascinating. It is incredibly deep. There's a lot you can do with the tools. I don't know how easily people are just going to naturally gravitate toward this, especially when they see the guts of it, to be like, I want to learn that. I think you have to be, that definitely speaks more towards like people who are actually know this software and actually are dabbling in this stuff already. But it is a project that I'm curious to hear about, and something if I wonder if it's going to go. It seems like an odd,
Did they say
comparison.
At all, like,
but
who they were targeting, the type of person they think this is ideal for.
It seems obviously geared towards the PC community, just again people that are very comfortable, almost kind of budding developers who are interested in kind of adding their own little personal flair to this project. But I tried to be very honest with them, where I was like, I think this is going to be a slow burn. I think it's going to be something where it's going to take a long time for people to kind of adopt and get it and realize their own creations.
It's cool seeing that happen in Dreams in real time, where kind of at the start of Dreams, you had like a lot of works in progress, a lot of like, okay, people are clearly figuring this out, and then weeks later, it's like, oh, okay, no, people are learning, they're getting this. It's a much more, I don't know, when communities can get together and support each other and educate each other and actually be like, okay, I'm taking a little piece from this guy, I'm taking a little piece from this guy, and then I'm making my own thing. And just that process of learning and growing, I think, is really cool. And so if they can foster that with this game, be good. I just hope the initial wall is not too steep.
Yes. Yeah. And they might learn from that and be like, oh, okay, we've dialed that back, or created kind of an intermediary HUD that you can use if you only want to use the basic tools to do something. And then someone else who's a much more elaborate creator can then take those things that you've made. And again, they're just introducing this. Like this game they don't have a date set. So I'm curious if it seems like an odd comparison, but if it's akin to something like a Warframe where 2 years down the road, it's like, oh no, Endless Mission's going pretty strong right now. You might want to just kind of check it out because it's interesting, the stuff that the community built. But I felt bad because the second that menu popped up, I was like, oh no. I really want to tell you that I'll be there day one, but like that seems absolutely terrifying. My final game to talk about of E3 2019 is something that, first of all, a Western, but very, very tactics heavy. Just for me, just because that's a game that I make mistakes, but I'm already halfway through the mission, so let's just wrap it up. And I love this. I was like, man, I might actually jump into this and spend some time, because when I think of something, this isn't as elaborate, or your crew is certainly not as big as something like an XCOM, but when I think about those games, I think about like distance. Like you are scanning very far into the environment.
Sure.
Desperados 3, very intimate. Every exchange that you're in is between you and like 2 other people, at least in the mission that I did. So when you take a knife and like hit somebody with it, it's big. Like when you save ammo, when you actually manage to get through a sequence by just taking out 2 people, but neither of them saw it coming, or you take out one guy, that makes noise, the other guy comes in, and then you sneak up behind him. I played this with a mouse and keyboard. Huber said you could play it with a controller, and he said it was great. He was he's like, you are actually controlling that person, and he said it obviously you're not going to get the kind of tactics or necessarily like command of the environment that you would with a mouse and keyboard, but he's like, I had a blast doing that. So I'm not sure how that translates, but I had a lot of fun just with mouse and keyboard. And so we start the game, and I am the son, and I'm with my father, and he's kind of training me and teaching me how to, take dudes out, and we're trying to sneak through this base. And so it perfectly fit the tutorial because he's kind of like giving me, explaining how each things work, and slowly like letting me have more control in terms of like actually trusting me to attack someone or stealth in and distract somebody. And just one example of how it just feels a lot more intimate and resource. Like the resources are precious. If you throw that knife, that's your knife. You got to go get it. So if you miss or if you hit somebody with it, you got to go over and take that knife out, and that's your knife. And he actually wipes it off and puts it back. Just really great animation. I love games like this where you're just close enough that I can tell the environment doesn't have a ton of detail to it, but I have just the right distance that it just looks so beautiful. And there were 2 environments. One was this just introductory area, and the other one was a train accident. And so this 2 trains had crashed, and so somewhere off the rails, and just kind of created a natural zigzag that you needed to take through the environment.
Were there any saloons at all?
No saloons, but again, the environments, right? But then again, the environments are realized so well that I would not be surprised if they, are suckers for that kind of stuff. And they're like, no, we got to get you up in the snowy mountains, got to get out, got to have like the cattle ride through the mud or something. Like I just see this game handling a lot of that stuff really well, and. So there are multiple characters. In the second mission, I play as that kid grown up, Cooper, and he's just kind of your regular all-around the cowboy character. And then on the mission, I meet Dr. McCoy, which is kind of on the nose, but
right.
Dr. McCoy had a gas trap that would slowly do damage to people that he could throw from a distance, and a sniper rifle, which changed everything. So now I'm getting into more difficult scenarios that have like kind of 3 people you need to negotiate, but one of those is just dead because now McCoy can deal with that. And it was interesting when I met the character because Cooper and McCoy were like, McCoy, I think, like had something that was on that train that he went to go get, and Cooper was looking for someone. So it's like, well, our interests align for now, so we'll meet up. But by the end of the mission, it was like, McCoy's like,
alliance.
well, I'll likely never see you again, sir. Goodbye. And it's like, I think you'll see him again. But they emphasize failing. They're like, you're going to fail. That's the point. Like, you're going to do this wrong, and then you're going to want to go back. There's a clock in the HUD that shows you the last time you saved. So it's like you're constantly seeing that number and being like 15 minutes. Oh, okay, I got it.
If you don't save, it's your fault.
Yeah, you could save any time, and so that was definitely the way that I played. Like anytime I got past like a little scenario, and it is set up that way. It's very clear. It's not like a big base Metal Gear style where you're like, oh, you can really do it any way you want. Like it really is just kind of like these 2 guys, now these 3 guys, now this. And so it was neat learning from every single tiny intimate encounter and then being presented with just slightly bigger challenges. Every single time I got to one of these things, I wasn't like, oh no, I'm not feeling these abilities, or I just don't know how this works. Like I would get to a new area and see dudes and be like, oh, you guys are all gonna die. Like I'm gonna get through. Like I'm gonna breeze through this. And I actually managed to get through. It took me a little bit longer than it took some of the other people, but. it just has a really nice slow pace, which again really fits the genre. The really good storytelling between, again, these two. Cooper and McCoy had a really good, interesting relationship. The dad and the son had an interesting relationship because he was educating him, but he had they weren't like friends. I didn't get that vibe. It was definitely like, I gotta teach my kid this. So it had a very interesting attitude that I felt represented that era really well.
Did you
New Mexico, 1859.
How's the music? Did you get some nice Western?
Yeah, it wasn't because the game kind of strolls along at your own pace.
Yeah.
It wasn't really like this theme again. I think it was very
Did you
subtle.
play this at E3 or at Judges Week?
It's a Judges Week.
Okay. So you could actually hear the music, so.
Yes. got the headphones on. Yeah. In a room, yeah. You can freeze time and you can speed up time. I thought that was interesting. So if you're playing a mission again for the second time, you can go through it faster. And specifically, you can freeze and just like, hold on, I want you to do that, and I want you to do that. Okay, go. And so that was fun near the end when I would set something up. I'd send Cooper in to kind of be on a wall right behind somebody and then have the guy snipe a guy. That first guy, I heard the shot. Cooper comes up, takes out the other guy. Third guy's not even paying attention, and then Cooper can just throw the knife and take him out. And so it was just a lot of that. And it was neat having this, being so far back from the environment and doing all this stealthy stuff. It was neat because it's like I can see. No one's going to sneak up on me. I can see everybody. I know how far they are. I can wait until that guy goes all the way up to that ledge to kill his friends, and then he comes back and what happened and rushes in and take him out.
I'm just visualizing this like a Western XCOM. So did you have to worry a lot about accuracy and where you were before you would initiate an attack?
No, I think it's mostly just about timing. I think it's mostly about like dealing with the enemy AI, and I because each encounter got more difficult the more people they added. I think that's kind of the trick. One thing that when Cooper, I got a new ability because I think he just found a separate gun, and then that enabled him to shoot two people at once.
Nice.
So it like when you get those things now, you're like, okay, I don't have to worry about that guy now. But again, just like putting puzzle pieces together, it's like, but there's this fourth guy. What do I do with him? Or in some cases, can I just accept that like I might take a little damage here, or I might just kind of rush through this one area, you crouch, distract, use traps, hide bodies, they had a gameplay clip at the end that teased like all sorts of abilities at the end of the demo, and I was just surprised how much I liked just the minute-to-minute slow, cozy pace of it, and how I tend to like, when I play RPGs and shooters and stuff like that, I like to get very much open world games. I really like to get in that world. But it's amazing to me how when they would just have these intimate discussions, and I'm as far back as I am, that I'm still invested in this world and still invested in these characters, and it just had such a wonderful style to it. And I was just a classic, Judges Week appointment that had 4 games on it. I think I waited. That was going to be the last game where I was like, okay, time to suck at one of these games because I'm just so terrible at them. And then about halfway through it, I was like, wait, I want to be good at this.
Yeah.
Because it's so rewarding to do a section well, and just aesthetically, it's such a win. And I know nothing at all about Desperados 1 and 2. And so there was a moment where I was waiting for one appointment, and some 2 guys came by and saw the line, and they were like, I wonder if this is worth waiting for. And I'm like, it is.
Nice.
I'm like, it's cool. You should check it out. So I convinced them to get in line and check it out. But,
spreading the Desperados message.
Yeah, and I mean, I can relate because, it was one of those things where we got those invitations through, and I'm like, does anyone want that? It was hard to like figure out where the interest was on the game, and it's I'm glad that you actually saw it because now that we know about it, it does seem very interesting and unique.
Yeah. Because when I play something, I mean, this is not a stab at XCOM. It's just the differences between these types of games.
Yeah.
When I play XCOM, the music, dun, 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 and I'm just like, okay, oh God, okay, go there. Oh, that didn't work. Versus just like tumbleweeds, wind blowing.
You were meant to be in the Wild
smoking
West.
a cigarette,
Yeah.
Like,
it's where
hey, you
you
got something, and then I come up, stab him in the neck. Like, it's just, I don't know. I just that kind of pace in that world, I'm looking forward to spending more time in, and unexpectedly, this game's on my list. It's a big list, but
Right.
When the personal matrix becomes real, you will immediately jack into
the Wild West.
The Wild West.
yeah.
So that's gonna do it for Brandon. He's got places to be.
Yeah.
We've gotten a lot longer than we initially planned, but thank you for sticking around.
And thank all of you. I know we only have a limited amount of allies here because we're doing very specific impressions, but just good job, Jack.
Yay.
Yeah, it's really great E3, and happy E3 to all of you.